Imagine this. It's a warm summer afternoon in Athens, around the year 430 BCE. The Agora, the heart of Athenian public life, is buzzing with merchants, philosophers, and statesmen. Among them stands Socrates, surrounded by curious listeners as he poses provocative questions. But today, something extraordinary happens. A young student approaches, not with a scroll, but with a glowing slab, a device capable of instant connection to all human knowledge. The Internet, in ancient Greece. This isn't a scene from science fiction, it's a thought experiment. What if the Internet, that vast digital web we now take for granted, had been invented not in the 20th century, but in the 5th century BCE? What if Socrates had a Twitter account? If Plato posted dialogues on a streaming platform? If Aristotle could browse data on animal biology from an ancient version of Wikipedia? Let's pause. Before we laugh off the idea, consider this. Ancient Greece was already a world of revolutionary ideas. It was the birthplace of democracy, philosophy, geometry, and drama. It was home to some of the sharpest minds in history, and arguably one of the most open societies in antiquity when it came to debate, logic, and public discourse. Now introduce a tool like the Internet into this mix, a tool that can instantly store, retrieve, and share information. A tool that breaks the limits of geography, class, and even time. Would it propel humanity forward by 2,000 years? Or would it tear society apart before it had a chance to mature? This is the question we'll explore. In this 6-part journey, we'll imagine the unthinkable. What if the Internet had emerged during the classical age? How would ancient politics, education, warfare, religion, and daily life have changed? And perhaps most importantly, what does this tell us about our own relationship with technology today? Let's step back into antiquity, where marble columns meet digital code, and where one of history's most advanced civilizations is suddenly given access to the most powerful tool of our time. The Agora is online. Let the ancient network begin. Before we imagine routers in the Acropolis or scrolls turned into hyperlinks, we need to understand the world where the Internet would have appeared. The year is roughly 430 BCE. Athens is at its peak. The city-state is the heart of Greek philosophy, democracy, art, and science. But it's also on the verge of war. The Peloponnesian War is about to erupt between Athens and Sparta. Tensions are high, yet intellectual life is flourishing. Athens had a population of about 250,000, including slaves, foreigners, and citizens. Only adult male citizens could vote or speak in the assembly. Women were excluded from public discourse. Still, Athens was unique in its open exchange of ideas. Debates happened in public squares, schools, and homes. Literacy was not universal, but it was valued among the elite. Education focused on rhetoric, logic, poetry, and memorization. Students memorized the Iliad and Odyssey by heart. Knowledge moved slowly, through oral tradition or handwritten scrolls passed between teachers and pupils. Now imagine this environment receiving something like the Internet. To build such a network, the society would need several things. Electricity, which they didn't have. Digital interfaces, unknown in that era. Languages and symbols that could be translated into binary logic. A cultural mindset willing to embrace rapid, uncontrollable communication. While electricity and computers were obviously absent, Greece had a surprising number of qualities that aligned with the spirit of the Internet. Openness to dialogue. Philosophers like Socrates used open-ended questioning, not unlike online forums. Democracy. Citizens engaged in public debate, much like today's comment sections or discussion boards. Academies. Plato's Academy and Aristotle's Lyceum were early hubs of knowledge, akin to Wikipedia's communal ethos. Storytelling. Oral tradition was strong. People shared information by talking, a trait mirrored in today's podcasts and live streams. The challenge, of course, is scale. Ancient Athens didn't have factories or cables. But let's suppose, for the sake of this thought experiment, that a miracle occurred. A futuristic device powered by solar energy appeared. It didn't need infrastructure, only minds. What would those minds do with it? Plato once said that writing would destroy memory. He feared that relying on written words would make people forget how to think. Now imagine his face when seeing people scroll endlessly on a screen. Or Socrates, who never wrote anything down. He might be horrified by people quoting him on blogs he never endorsed. Yet, these thinkers might also see the internet as the ultimate extension of their own work. A place for endless dialectic, global exchange, and preservation of knowledge. So, was ancient Greece ready? Philosophically, perhaps yes. Technologically, absolutely not. Culturally, they might have welcomed the chance but struggled with the consequences. This is the paradox we face. A civilization intellectually primed for connection, but materially unprepared to handle it. In the next part, we'll explore what happens when the impossible becomes reality. When a device from the future lands in the agora, and the ancient world goes online. Imagine a quiet morning in the Athenian agora. Merchants lay out figs, olives, and scrolls. Philosophers gather beneath columns. Students recite Homer. Suddenly, a glowing rectangular object appears in the center of the square. A solar-powered tablet with full internet access. People freeze. Some call it divine. Others call it witchcraft. Priests are summoned. The device speaks, using perfect Attic Greek, and displays an image, the Parthenon from above. The crowd gasps. They've never seen their own city from the sky. Overnight, the world changes. 1. The first users. Philosophers and scribes. Naturally, the first to engage are the thinkers. Socrates sits with the device, asking it questions. What is justice? What is courage? The AI responds with quotes from future philosophers, psychologists, and even Reddit threads. Plato is fascinated. He sees it as the perfect forms machine, storing all knowledge. Aristotle begins categorizing websites: physics, ethics, biology, logic. He unknowingly invents the internet directory. Scribes copy websites word for word onto scrolls, not understanding that the information can be accessed again. It becomes a daily ritual. Enter the agora, read the glowing screen, copy its words. 2. The political chaos. Soon, democracy feels the tremors. Assembly members use the device to predict crop yields, quote American presidents, or cite studies on republics. Citizens grow suspicious. Is this still Athenian democracy or foreign control? Some argue the internet is a gift from the gods. Others say it's a threat to divine order. Religious leaders call it hubris, human pride trying to rival the gods. A movement begins. Unplug Athens. Yet many young Athenians are addicted. They gather at the agora not for discourse but to watch cat videos, play primitive games, and write anonymous slander about rival city-states. 3. Military advantage and espionage. Sparta hears rumors of a magic screen in Athens. Alarmed, they send spies. One Spartan disguises himself as a philosopher, touches the tablet, and sees war strategies from 21st century generals. His mind is blown. He returns home and says, "They have the wisdom of gods." Athens, realizing the danger, builds a marble housing around the device and sets up guards. They call it the Oracle of Code. Only selected citizens can ask it questions. Naval officers use weather forecasts from the future to plan routes. Generals read about drone warfare, unaware of the meaning but inspired to rethink formations. 4. Societal impact and cultural shifts. Writers begin publishing blog posts on scrolls. They include comment sections written manually by passing scrolls around. Some scrolls go viral, copied across city-states. Artists create memes, busts of Zeus with modern sunglasses, or Athena holding a smartphone. Plays are written about the screen, portraying it as a new Prometheus, bringing fire to humanity. But problems arise. Young people stop memorizing poems. They Google everything. Teachers are frustrated. No one remembers the Iliad anymore, they say. They just search it. The class divide deepens. Only elites near the agora access the screen. Rural farmers hear wild rumors. The city has a talking stone, or Athenians see the future. Some think the gods have returned. Others believe it's sorcery. 5. The first hack. One day, a mischievous teen enters a query. How do I become a god? The tablet crashes. For a full day, it shows only a blue screen with the phrase, "Error, consciousness loop." Priests panic. Is it the wrath of Zeus? But by nightfall, the tablet resets. It starts showing targeted ads, sandals for sale, olive oil discounts, even offers for online philosophy courses. No one knows how the ads got there. Some suspect Sparta hacked it. Others say it's divine marketing. A glimpse into the future. In weeks, Athens changes more than it had in centuries. The agora becomes a proto-tech hub. Philosophers debate digital ethics. Artists 3D model statues based on tutorials. The Delphic oracle becomes less popular. Why ask a vague priestess when the screen answers clearly? But deep under the excitement lies a fear. What if the device vanishes? What if it's watching them? Some begin to worship it. Others plan to destroy it. The internet has arrived, and with it, all the chaos, beauty, knowledge, and disruption it always brings. If the internet had been invented in ancient Greece, one of the most critical consequences would revolve around the control of information. In a society made up of numerous independent city-states, each with its own government, military, and philosophy, the question of who controls the network would become not just a technological issue, but a political one. The internet, as a tool of communication, would also be a tool of influence, manipulation, and dominance. Let's consider Athens and Sparta, two powerful rivals. If Athens managed to control or dominate this early internet system, it could use it to spread democratic ideals far beyond its borders, persuading smaller polis, city-states, to adopt its philosophies and political structures. The flow of ideas, now instant and wide-reaching, would give Athens a massive soft power advantage, turning it into a kind of digital empire. But Sparta wouldn't stand by idly. As a society focused on military discipline and oligarchy, Sparta might see the internet as a threat to their strict societal structure. They might build firewalls, both figurative and literal, to prevent citizens from accessing subversive content. Or worse, they could use the network for surveillance, propaganda, or psychological warfare against rival states. An arms race wouldn't be about who had more hoplites. It would be about who controlled the information highways. We'd likely see the emergence of digital alliances and cyber treaties among city-states. Imagine alliances based not just on military agreements, but also on information-sharing protocols or mutual defense against cyber attacks. Could we even see the birth of ancient Greek hackers, hired by city-states to sabotage enemy servers, manipulate votes in digital forms, or crash opposing government systems? Religious authorities would also play a major role. Priests and oracles, once the gatekeepers of divine messages, might resist the internet entirely, viewing it as a human-made oracle that bypasses the gods. Or they might adapt, turning the web into a tool to spread religious doctrine far and wide, digitizing sacred texts and rituals. Temples could host online ceremonies, and mythologies might evolve into interactive virtual experiences. This battle over digital control would also shape diplomacy. Embassies could be virtual, treaties digitally signed, and alliances negotiated over encrypted channels. Deception, espionage, and political assassinations might happen in cyberspace instead of the streets. In this version of history, power would not solely lie with warriors or philosophers, but with coders, administrators, and digital strategists. A new class of elites might rise, the technocrats of the ancient world, who could read code like scripture and influence thousands with a single message. The philosophical implications would be immense. Plato once warned about the written word weakening memory and critical thinking. Imagine what he'd say about tweets and memes. Would he embrace this new form of communication or denounce it as the ultimate distraction from the pursuit of truth? What is clear is that the very fabric of ancient Greek political life would be rewoven around the threads of digital connectivity. War, peace, religion, and diplomacy would no longer depend only on messengers and alliances, but on who had the password, the server access, and the digital leverage. If the internet had existed in ancient Greece, its long-term impact on world history would be profound. So profound, in fact, that the entire course of civilization might be rewritten. Let's start with knowledge preservation. One of the tragedies of ancient history is the loss of countless texts, discoveries, and philosophies due to wars, fires, or simple decay over time. But with the internet, information could be digitized, copied, and stored redundantly across multiple locations. The burning of the Library of Alexandria, for example, might have been just a minor setback if all those scrolls had been uploaded to a shared digital network. This would allow not only preservation, but acceleration. Scientific theories, engineering designs, and medical knowledge could be shared across city-states and generations in ways that ancient oral and handwritten traditions never allowed. Imagine Hippocrates live streaming a surgery, or Archimedes hosting an online forum discussing buoyancy. The Greek world would become a hub of innovation, not over centuries, but possibly within decades. More than that, education would be democratized. In the real ancient world, knowledge was a privilege reserved for the elite. But with online forums, tutorials, and digital archives, even lower-class citizens or distant cultures could access the wisdom of the Greeks. What if the early internet broke down class barriers? What if women and slaves had access to the same ideas as philosophers? The chain reaction would be enormous. Imagine an Egyptian student learning geometry from Pythagoras via a virtual lecture, or a Babylonian sharing astronomy insights with a Greek through instant messages. Cultures wouldn't just collide, they would blend, evolve, and grow together, centuries earlier than in our real timeline. The Renaissance? It might have come 1,500 years earlier. The scientific revolution? Perhaps launched in the 1st century BCE instead of the 16th. The printing press, electricity, flight, and even space exploration could have happened centuries ahead of schedule. However, not all consequences would be positive. Mass information leads to mass disinformation. With no modern understanding of cybersecurity, ancient societies could fall prey to rumors, fake prophecies, or digital manipulation. A malicious user might impersonate a god, spread panic, or crash entire city infrastructures. Philosophical debates could devolve into troll wars. Political manipulation could undermine democracies before they ever truly formed. Worse still, if a single state, say Athens, monopolized digital access, they might create a proto-digital empire, rewriting history, silencing rival narratives, and controlling what generations to come believe. Truth would be whoever controls the servers. And that's not all. With digital surveillance in place, authoritarian governments might rise faster. Spartans, with their rigid discipline, could build the ancient world's first totalitarian cyberstate. Religious radicalization might spread faster. Extremist cults could recruit online. The digital agora could turn into a battlefield of ideology. So yes, history would be rewritten, but not necessarily for the better. Whether this early internet brings enlightenment or chaos depends entirely on how humans choose to use it. The biggest lesson here? Technology is a tool, not a destiny. Even in ancient Greece, it's not the invention itself that matters most, but how people wield it. Let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've taken. We imagined a world where the internet, a symbol of modern connectivity, was born not in Silicon Valley or CERN, but in the sunlit courtyards of ancient Athens. A world where Socrates blogs his dialogues instead of reciting them. Where Plato posts status updates about justice. Where the agora is not a dusty square, but a digital forum humming with debate, dissent, and discovery. It sounds absurd, and yet incredibly plausible. Because at its core, the internet is just an amplifier. It amplifies our communication, our curiosity, our creativity, but also our fear, our division, and our desire for control. It is not good or evil. It is a mirror. Had it been invented in ancient Greece, the internet would not have magically enlightened humanity. It might have started revolutions of knowledge or accelerated tyranny. It could have united empires, or created new, virtual ones. It might have preserved the voice of Aristotle, or drowned it in a sea of anonymous comments. What it absolutely would have done, however, is speed up history. The pace of progress in the ancient world was glacial by today's standards. With digital infrastructure, that pace could have leapt forward centuries in a matter of decades. Medicine, mathematics, literature, and law could have evolved in real time across civilizations. The age of exploration might have arrived before the age of empires. The 21st century might have been reached by the year 500. But maybe that's not the lesson we should take. Maybe the real insight isn't about when technology is invented, but how we respond when it is. We today live in the world the Greeks could never have imagined, and yet many of their core questions remain. What is truth? Who controls knowledge? How do we build a just society? These questions persist, amplified now by our digital tools. If the internet had existed in ancient Greece, it wouldn't just change their world, it would challenge ours to ask, are we truly wiser or just faster? Technology without wisdom is noise. Wisdom without access is silence. But when both exist together, shared freely, used responsibly, we create more than progress. We create meaning. So maybe the final lesson of this wild thought experiment is simple. In any age, ancient or modern, how we connect matters more than how fast we connect. Let's use our tools not just to reach farther, but to reach deeper. Because the internet, like democracy, like philosophy, is only as strong as the minds and hearts behind it.